Welcome back, Defenders. Today's video is going to get crazy because it finally happened. Ukraine has successfully captured 2 North Korean soldiers fighting for Russia in the Kursk region. Ukraine has released the drone video, I'll link it down below, of the evacuation of these wounded North Korean soldiers. And this was a very difficult operation. Ukraine has been trying to do this for over a month now. Capture any one of these guys alive. The reason why this has been challenging is the standing orders in the Russian military for any Russian soldier. If you see a wounded North Korean man, execute him. On top of that, these North Korean soldiers have been instructed, if you're wounded on the battlefield, do not allow yourself to be captured. Take your own life. Commit suicide rather than being captured by Ukraine. Here's the statement from President Zelenskyy. Our soldiers have captured North Korean military personnel in the Kursk region. 2 soldiers, though wounded, survived and were transported to Kyiv, where they are now communicating with the security service of Ukraine. This was not an easy task. Russian forces and other North Korean military personnel usually execute their wounded to erase any evidence of North Korea's involvement in the war against Ukraine. I am grateful to the soldiers of the Tactical Group Number 84. As with all prisoners of war, these 2 North Korean soldiers are receiving the necessary medical assistance, and I have instructed the Security Service of Ukraine to grant journalists access to these prisoners. The world needs to know the truth about what is happening. And we have an interview. North Korean POW reveals he expected training, not fighting against Ukraine. One of the captured DPRK prisoners of war possessed a fake Russian military ID issued in the name of a real Russian citizen. And we're going to go through this interview together. So there's going to be a Ukrainian questioner whose voice is going to be blurred, and then a translator who can speak to this North Korean man. It's obvious this guy does not speak any Russian. He only speaks Korean. And he's not one of the ethnic minorities from the Far East. This guy is from North Korea.
Чи знаєте ви, де ви зараз?
지금 여기가 어딘지 알아?
Не знаю. Ви перебуваєте в Україні.
너 지금 우크라이나에 있어, 우크라이나.
Ви знали, що ви воюєте проти України?
우크라이나 상대로 싸우는 거 알고 있었지. 몰랐어?
Не знав. А що вам казали?
If we can be honest, I don't think the average North Korean has expert knowledge of world geography, and they probably can't find Ukraine on a map.
Ваші командири, коли відправляли на війну.
그러면 여기 지휘관들 모자는 뭐라고 그랬어? 누구랑 싸운다고 했어?
훈련을 실전처럼 해본다고 했어요.
Йому казали, що просто тренування.
북한의 가족들이 없어? 있어?
Родина є. Вони знають, де ви зараз.
부모님은 지금 너 어디 있는지 알아?
А як
So that's an important question. Does your family know where you are right now? And this North Korean soldier says no. This is important that the world knows this, that the DPRK has not officially announced to their people their participation in this war. The civilian population of North Korea has no idea that their forces are fighting in the Kursk region right now.
довго він на лінії фронту?
그러면 전선에는 1월 3일부터만 있었던 거야? 1월 3일부터 있었고 그러고 언제까지? 잡혔을 때까지?
1월 3일 날 나와서 옆에 동료들이 죽는 것을 보고 거기 난강호에 숨어 있다가 5일 날 부상당하고
3 числа був наступ. Бачив, що його солдати вмирають. Сховався у бліндажі. 5 числа його знайшли. Така історія. Ви хочете повернутися назад в Північну Корею?
북한으로 다시 돌아가고 싶어? 조선으로 다시 돌아가고 싶어?
Так.
A simple question, do you want to return home? to North Korea. And this is actually a difficult topic for people in South Korea, because there are lots of North Koreans who escape North Korea, are granted asylum in South Korea. They live in South Korea for a couple years and they feel like outsiders, and then they risk their lives to get back to the Chinese border to sneak back into North Korea. There are lots of North Koreans who have gotten out, and it's instinctive for people to want to go home to their homeland. So if these North Korean men have a desire to return back to North Korea, that's understandable. That's all they've known their entire lives, and that's where all their family and friends live. So they might want to go home, but they're going to go to South Korea first to be given the truth and be given the opportunity. Do they want to be returned and risk punishment, or do they want to start over and have a new life in South Korea?
Ви хочете повернутися назад в Північну Корею?
다시 북한으로 돌아가고 싶어?
우크라이나 사람보다 좋은가요?
우크라이나 괜찮은 것 같아? 여긴 좋아.
여기서 살고 싶어요.
Я хочу жити в Україні. Ми розуміємо, що ви не володієте.
So this North Korean says he wants to remain in Ukraine and live in Ukraine, but he might just be saying that because he thinks that's what the interrogator wants to hear.
Діли інформацію повною мірою, тому ми готові допомагати.
너는 지금 우리 여기 우크라이나 친구들이랑 나를 포함해서 아까 여기 선생님들 계셨잖아. 그분들이랑 잘 얘기를 하면 여기서 최대한 살 수 있도록 우리가 잘 해볼 테니까 건강하게 잘 있어야 돼. 건강하게 잘 있고 밥 주는 거 잘 먹고 알겠지? 자주 올 테니까.
집에는 한 번 해주겠지.
집에 가고 싶어?
가라면 가면
가라면 갈 거고 우크라이나 남으라고 하면 남을 거고.
So in this video, they're not translating everything, but, you know, he says, Jipe hago shipayo, do you want to go home?
Він сказав, що в принципі, як йому скажуть. Тобто, якщо йому потрібно буде повертатися, то він повертатиметься. Якщо йому дадуть шанс залишитися тут, то він залишиться.
This man is defeated. He's seen the horrors of war. He's seen what life is like on the front lines, and he is telling these people, I'll do whatever you want. If you want me to remain here in Ukraine, if you want me to go back to North Korea, if you want to send me anywhere, I am not resisting. I will do anything you tell me. So these two North Korean men are pretty freaked out at the moment because their entire world narrative has been shattered if they're allowed to receive information that no North Korean is allowed to receive. So I have a strong feeling that some South Korean, or really North Korean military defectors who have been living in the South for decades, they're going to come and speak to these people. And these are their own. They know what villages they're from, they know the propaganda, they know what daily life in North Korea is like, and they will tell them the truth. And I'm sure they'll also be given a steady supply of choco pies and delicious, delicious food. I'm sure there's lots of tasty food in Ukraine that these men will be able to experience for the first time in their lives. If you want to know more about North Korea, I recommend the book Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. These men are lying. I can tell you right now, in this interview, they're going to lie because that's what they have to do to survive in North Korea. Everyone in North Korea lies all day, every day, just to survive, to avoid punishment, to avoid harassment. It's a dystopian nightmare of a society, and it's going to take time, but these two men might have a prominent future ahead of them in the South, being perhaps maybe an advocate for the dissolution of the Kim family and the collapse of the North Korean state. I now understand the significance of capturing these two men. I did say a couple weeks ago in a video that I thought Ukraine might conceal capturing North Koreans to protect their families back in North Korea, but the people above me made the calculation that no, we need to get their stories out. We need to learn everything we can possibly learn about these guys and how they got to this point, because it's about deterrence against more North Koreans coming. North Korea may end up sending Putin 100,000 troops for his war. The Russians and the North Koreans are being pretty stupid about this, giving these guys fake Russian passports and fake Russian names, claiming they're an ethnic minority from the Far East. But no, the intelligence is there. So South Korea is going to make a big deal of this, the United States is going to make a big deal of this, Ukraine is going to make a big deal of this, with the goal of somehow applying pressure on North Korea not to send any more guys. And really the only country that can apply pressure on North Korea is China. China has full control over the border with North Korea, and if they stop giving them food or energy or whatever, then that's the end of North Korea. So this is a play on China, getting these videos out on social media, and hopefully the Chinese governments can talk to the North Koreans and say this isn't worth your time, you should stay out of it. Here's a headline. Putin is open to speaking with Donald Trump, according to the Kremlin. We now have official confirmation from the Kremlin that Vladimir Putin wants to speak with Trump. And Trump says this meeting with Putin is currently being arranged. So there are back-channel negotiations happening. Where and when this will be, I don't think Trump will announce this until January 20th, but one of the first visits he'll be making is some neutral country. This could be in the Middle East, it could be in Turkey, and Trump and Putin are probably going to meet on like January 25th or the 30th. This is coming up in 2 weeks. And this is incredible because Putin is very eager to meet with Trump face to face. The Kremlin is making no prerequisite demands for the meeting to take place. Normally, when you're a nation at war, you want some conditions to be met before meeting an adversarial hostile state, and that's what the United States is to Russia. There has presumably been a lot of back-channel diplomacy before this official meeting. The Russian side aims to exclude Ukraine from the process completely and present itself to Trump as the side willing to compromise while blaming Kyiv for the continuation of the war. Why is this war still going on for 3 years? It's not because Russia is attacking Ukraine, it's because Ukraine is choosing to defend itself. That's how stupid the argument is, but Putin wants to make this argument to Trump face to face. And this meeting has to happen because Trump more or less promised it to his supporters. But will anything come of it? I argue no, because Trump is facing a reality that he didn't have to think about when he was campaigning. There's a huge difference between campaigning, you can say whatever you want, and the realities of governing. Trump is responsible for America now. If America does not do well or does not succeed, yes, Americans are going to blame Trump. And Putin's territorial demands make any kind of peace talks unsustainable. It's unrealistic. Russia maintains its demand for Ukraine to replace its government and cede territory while expressing openness for this dialogue. So the reality that Trump is going to be confronted with is the Russians are demanding the north bank of the Dnipro River. They want the city of Kherson back. Pre-war population 300,000. This was the largest city Russia was able to take without completely leveling like they did to Mariupol. And the Russians want to get to the other side of the river as a foothold, a bridgehead, for their next attack. When they choose to attack Ukraine again in 6 months, 2 years, 4 years, or whatever. The Russians want to take Mykolaiv, they want to take Odessa, and they want to link up with their forces in Transnistria. The other point, and I'm going to keep screaming this because it's so obvious and stupid for the Russians to be demanding the city of Zaporizhia. The Russians, according to their constitution, annexed a city of 700,000 people in a vote in which they didn't control the city and nobody in that city voted to be annexed. The Russians want to be given the city of Zaporizhia. They want the full administrative borders up to this point. This would then put their military in artillery range of the city of Dnipro, a city of 1 million people, would then have a knife to their throat whenever Russia wants to resume this war. So Putin's demands are not realistic, and this is going to be explained to Trump at some point. The question is, how will Trump react? And the question is, can Putin really scale back his ambitions? After all the Russians have died, after all the sanctions, after all the financial costs and the burdens the Russian people have endured, for Putin, would they settle? Would the Z-Patriots, the hardcore nationalists, really be okay with just freezing the front lines and not getting Kherson, not getting Zaporizhia, not getting the rest of the Donetsk Oblast? And these negotiations are going to fail. They're going to fail. On top of that, a Russian victory in Ukraine would require $808 billion in additional U.S. defense spending to stop the Russians from attacking NATO in the next war. This is going to happen, and it already would have happened if Kyiv had fallen in 3 days. The Russians want the Baltics back. They want to formally annex Belarus and then connect their territory with Kaliningrad. Finland is not safe. Poland is not safe. Georgia, Armenia, anything that once belonged to the Russian Empire, the czars of the 1900s. Putin has declared, we're taking it all back. I'm the new czar. I'm the new sovereign. Everything that once belonged to the Russian Empire still belongs to us today. If the United States is treaty bound to defend these people and these nations, then this is what it would cost, according to the experts, according to analysts. It's far cheaper for American taxpayers to just continue supporting Ukraine today than it is to prepare for a war after Russia absorbs Ukraine back into their empire, after Russia gets a hold of trillions of dollars worth of oil, gas, and rare earth elements, and 40 million people they can Russify, and then teach to hate the West, hate the United States. In the meantime, the war continues. Drones strike major Russian oil refinery in Tatarstan. This is about 1,200 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. Ukraine struck it with drones, and the oil refinery is on fire. Good. Keep going, Ukraine. Don't stop. In my last video, I mentioned this oil depot fire at the Russian city of Engels. This is one of their bomber bases. This was an oil depot used by their planes to bomb Ukrainian cities. And the oil depot fire is still going 4 days later. Now, Russia claims the oil depot fire is under control, but given these pictures and videos, no, I don't think this oil depot fire in Engels is under control. This is a good story. US and UK block Russia's oil giants in largest ever energy sanctions package, targeting Russia's shadow fleet. The US Department of the Treasury and the United Kingdom jointly targeted Russia's Gazprom Neft and however you say that company name, marking the most comprehensive action yet against Russia's ability to profit from energy exports to fund their war in Ukraine. This is a graph showing sanctioned Russian tankers, and the gloves are coming off. The latest sanctions are going to cause a lot of disruption in Russia's oil trade. 160 additional tankers have been sanctioned, meaning you can't buy and sell the contents of these tankers in dollars. You can't go through gateway points. You can't dock in certain harbors. These tankers, these shadow fleet tankers, are now untouchable for most countries in the world. Now, why did the United States wait until this week to do this? And it's because President Biden didn't want to disrupt energy markets while he was president, and in a week or so, he won't be president anymore. Russia says U.S. risks global energy instability with new sanctions. And I don't hear Donald Trump complaining. I don't hear Mike Waltz or General Keith Kellogg complaining about these sanctions. Meaning, there's some good cop, bad cop stuff happening here. Joe Biden this last week is being the bad cop, and he's trying to do as much as he can to increase pressure on Russia so that Trump can come in on January 20th, talk to Putin face to face and say, we can make a deal, I can lift these sanctions on your Shadow Fleet tankers if you stop the fighting, if you stop advancing, if you stop attacking Ukraine. Donald Trump wanted this to happen, but he's not going to publicly say that. Here's some analysis from Stephanie Baker. She's the author of Punishing Putin, a pretty good book I recently read about sanctions on Russia. New sanctions on these energy giants should give pause to buyers in India and China. Both companies combined ship about 1 million barrels a day. Washington sanctioned these 160 new tankers hauling Russian oil. Some were already blacklisted by the UK and the EU, but US sanctions matter more because of the reach of the US dollar. This is an interesting paragraph. Dileep Singh, Deputy National Security Advisor, explained why they waited till the end of Biden's term to act, arguing oil prices have come down and supplies are expected to exceed global demand in 2025. So they had room to hit hard. Already global oil prices are rising in expectation that Russia's supply will be taken off the market. The price of gasoline here in the United States might go up. The global energy prices might go up. But if Russia's supply goes offline because they can't ship at a profit or they just can't functionally ship anymore, yeah, this would be devastating for Russia and very important for Ukraine. On top of the fact that all of these Shadow Fleet tankers are not being properly maintained, all of these ships are starting to fail. Damaged oil tanker springs new leak in southern Russia. This is another one of these inland tankers that go out to the Black Sea and then do ship-to-ship transfers. And this is the third one. There was also the crane ship. There was also the Eagle S in the Mediterranean. Russia can't maintain their fleet. They don't have the resources or access to Western components and technicians to help them. Suspected Russian Shadow Fleet tanker carrying 100,000 tons of oil adrift on the German coast. This is a different ship. The other one was in the Black Sea near Krasnodar. This one is in the Baltic Sea. And the ship was rescued. Zelenskyy referred to this ship as an oil bomb that fortunately didn't detonate. However, Moscow operates hundreds of such bombs that are sailing all over the world. Now, this oil tanker was rescued by the Germans. The Germans towed it back to a port, and I'm assuming some kind of maintenance will be done, and probably inspections will also be done, and the ship won't be allowed to depart until it's safe to travel through international waters, when Russia is the one being irresponsible. If something bad had happened to this ship, oil would have been washing up on the shores of Germany and Denmark and Sweden and Poland. And Russia doesn't care about any of these people. They don't care if their ships fail and spill hundreds of thousands of tons of crude oil into the Baltic Sea. One more ship news. Russian fuel tanks leak on a warship near Syria's coast. These are ships that had to evacuate Syria in a hurry, and they don't have the fuel and resources to make it back to Kaliningrad just yet. So they're just hanging out in the Mediterranean. And according to the intelligence report, the Russian docking landing ship, the Alexander Otrokovsky, has developed issues with its water purification system and is experiencing fuel leaks in its second and third fuel tanks. If it's bad news for Russia, it's good news for Ukraine. I now want to read for you a video from this man, Pavel Gubarev. And you might not know who he is, but I guarantee you people in Ukraine and Russia know who this man is. And he's a separatist. Since 2014, he's been fighting for the Donetsk People's Republic, which was absorbed by Russia. He's just pro-Russian, but he's Ukrainian-born. He's a Ukrainian citizen who's been one of the most prominent supporters of Russia for the last 10 years. And I did share this video from 2.5 years ago of him speaking, saying that any Ukrainians who identify as not Russian are demons who need to be murdered. Any Ukrainian who speaks the Ukrainian language or doesn't identify as Russian, there's no saving them. They have to be killed. I'll link this video down below if you want to remember who this guy is. But 2.5 years later, his tone has changed. Let me read for you what he's now saying about his people in Donetsk. 3 years of a grueling war for which we turned out to be unprepared. Colossal casualties. Our army is getting rusty. Soldiers are losing skills, losing motivation. To move forward, to fight to the end, is, of course, a bad idea. I will now try to answer why. The Army's problems that existed at the beginning of the SMO have not gone away. Here we are talking now, and today, we have about 300 soldiers killed, I think. That's about the numbers I've heard on my Bush telegraph. Hundreds of killed every day. We can't fight like this. This is no way to fight. I saw the beginning of the war, and I see what we've come to. Unfortunately, alas and alack, 3 years on, things aren't moving. To attack in such a disposition is just tens, hundreds of thousands of casualties. We already have, I believe, lost 700,000 in this war, maybe more. My fellows who are more immersed in it think it's more. I say how many? 700? More, says my comrade Bamut. More. There you have it. A pro-Russian separatist from Donetsk saying that potentially 700,000 casualties is conservative. Does this number count the militias? The DPR and LPR fighters that were used horribly in the opening weeks of the war. In the opening weeks of the war, these guys were sent in with not enough training and no support and poor equipment because it was Ukrainians killing Ukrainians. These citizens from Donetsk and Luhansk are Ukrainians. And Russia wiped them all out because they're not real Russians. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine's defense industry receives 390 million euros from frozen Russian assets under the Danish model. Thank you so much to the people of Denmark. Fantastic. Canada allocate 305 million in military assistance to Ukraine. Thank you so much to the people of Canada. Final video I have for you is once again Ukrainian journalist Maria Avdiva back in the city of Kharkiv, and I just want to share her reports with you guys.
Hello from Kharkiv, Ukraine, Saltivka, the area you all probably know about. I haven't been here for a while and returned to see how the situation is at the moment. Over there, just 15 kilometers away, is the town of Lipsy, where the heavy fighting is going on, and you can clearly hear the shelling because the Russian troops are attacking Ukrainian positions. The area here in Saltivka is still heavily deserted. It's a school which is, as you see, can no longer be used as a school, and a lot of buildings are still heavily destroyed. And there are very few people left, but still some are living here in Saltivka under the constant threat of the shelling, because they know that this is their city and they don't want to abandon and leave. And this is also my city, which I love a lot and which I hope will see another peaceful time. Slava Ukraini!
Kharkiv will have peace again someday. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.